Hello, welcome in. This is Caden from QuantTactics. In this video, I'm going to guide you on how to install Freqtrade with Docker on your Windows machine. We'll start from installing Docker, then move on to Visual Studio Code for our working environment, and finally Freqtrade using the official Docker image. At the end, I'll show you how to use dev containers in VS Code so we can effectively develop strategies in Docker. Without further ado, let's get started. Here we are on the official Freqtrade website homepage. You can simply type freqtrade.io to reach this page, or use the link provided in the description box. I'll leave this link below. Now, let's navigate to the Quick Start with Docker page. Once you're on this page, we'll start by installing Docker. There are three options available: desktop for Mac, Windows, and Linux. Since we're installing it for Windows, I'm going to select that option. This will lead you to another page. Here, you'll see a blue button labeled Docker Desktop for Windows. Click on it to start the Docker download process. Let's dive deeper into the system requirements for our task. The first requirement we need to pay attention to is WSL, which stands for Windows Subsystem for Linux. To verify if you have WSL installed, follow these steps. Press the Windows key and R simultaneously to open the Run dialog box. In the Run dialog box, type CMD and hit Enter to open the terminal. In the terminal, type WSL and hit Enter. If you receive a response like this, that confirms that the WSL is installed on your system. However, if you do not see a response, you can install WSL by typing the command WSL install and hitting Enter. After confirming the WSL installation, let's review the other system requirements. Windows 11 users should have a 64-bit system, either Home or Pro version, and it should be 21H2 or higher. Similarly, Windows 10 users require the Home or Pro version, 21H2 or higher. To verify your Windows version, follow these steps. Press the Windows key and R simultaneously to open the Run dialog box. In the Run dialog box, type WinVer and press Enter. Your Windows version will be displayed. For instance, my version is 22H2, and it's Windows 10. In summary, verify that your system meets these requirements before installing the software. This ensures a smooth installation and operation of the software. Finally, check if your version supports Docker. If it does, we can proceed. The next step involves enabling the WSL2 feature on Windows. To do this, go to the search bar and look for Enable Windows. You'll see an option for Turn Windows feature on or off. In the list that appears, find WSL, which stands for Windows Subsystem for Linux, and Virtual Machine Platform. Enable these options and click on OK. It may take a few seconds to process. After the setup is complete, choose the option Don't Restart, because we'll restart the PC at a different step. Next, we also need to verify whether virtualization is enabled. To check if virtualization is enabled on Windows, press Ctrl plus Shift plus Escape. This will open the Task Manager. Click on the Performance tab and look for Virtualization. It is usually enabled by default. Now that we have all the necessary requirements, we can proceed with the downloaded .exe file. Upon opening it, you'll see Docker setup initiating and loading. It will verify the packages, so please wait for this process to complete. Next, you'll be asked to configure settings. I will keep both options selected for using WSL2 and leaving a shortcut on the desktop, then click OK. Now, the system will unpack the files and start installing Docker. As you can see, the installation was successful. I will now close this window and restart my PC. After restarting your PC, open Docker. The first time you open Docker, you will see an acceptance screen. Click Accept. Select the recommended settings and click Finish. Next, select Continue without signing in. Then click Skip Survey. Docker will begin starting the engine. This process may take a minute or two to load all necessary components. Once everything is loaded, you will see the following page. At this point, Docker is ready to use. Next, I'll guide you on how to download and install Visual Studio Code on your Windows system. First, navigate to visualstudio.com, the link for which can be found in the description box below. Once on the page, locate and click on the blue Download for Windows button. The download will begin. After it completes, simply click on the downloaded file to start the installation process. The setup for Visual Studio Code should now be started. Click Accept on the agreement and then Next. The default location for the Visual Studio Code installation will be displayed. Unless you have a specific reason to change it, leave it as is and click Next. You'll now see a Start menu folder. Unless you wish to change it, leave it as default and click Next. Next, you'll see additional tasks. If you want to create a desktop icon, check the corresponding checkbox. If you wish to add Open with Code Actions to the Windows Explorer File context menu and Directory context menu, check those checkboxes as well. Once finished, click Next. Click Install and wait for the installation to complete. Once the installation is done, leave the checkbox checked to launch Visual Studio Code later. Click Finish to complete the process. Next, before installing Freqtrade, let's increase the font size of the window. Go to the Files in the menu and select Preferences. Click on Settings. In the search bar, type Zoom. Check the box for Mouse Wheel Zoom, which allows you to use the mouse wheel and the Ctrl key to zoom in on the editor's font. Once done, close the settings. Let's add a new file to test this feature. By pressing Ctrl and scrolling the mouse, we can easily adjust the font size. To change the window size, press Ctrl and the plus key together to increase the size. Similarly, press Ctrl and the minus key together to decrease the window size. Now we've reached the section where we'll install Freqtrade using Docker Compose. Docker Compose has multiple benefits, including simplified development and improved portability. Let's progress by utilizing Docker Compose to install Freqtrade. Begin by opening your terminal. Use the dir command to verify your current location. By default, you're in the current user's directory. Use the cd desktop command to navigate to your desktop. To create a folder on the desktop, we use the command mkdir ftih user data. Then, we use cd ft user data to change the directory to this new folder. After this, we can open the folder. Click on the desktop and choose FT User Data, then click Select Folder. Click the button to confirm that you trust the author. Next, reopen the terminal. The default directory should now be the FT User Data folder. Then, use the curl command to download the Docker Compose file from the official Freqtrade repository. After entering the command, you'll see the Docker Compose file downloaded into the folder. To open it, simply click on it. By default, it uses the stable image. However, if you want to plot a function while developing the strategy, you can change the image to develop plot. To comment on the line, just press Ctrl and /. After editing the image, save the file by pressing Ctrl+S. Next, use the Docker Compose pull command to pull the Freqtrade image. Once it's finished, establish the Freqtrade user directory structure by executing the command docker compose run, rm Freqtrade create user dir. The rm tag will delete the container after it has completed its task. This command will generate the Freqtrade user directory structure in the user data folder. You will now see that the user data folder has been created. This folder includes all necessary subfolders. For instance, the backtest results folder stores all backtesting result files. The data folder holds the historical data, and other folders which will be explained in future tutorials as we use them. Next, we use Freqtrade new config to create the config file for Freqtrade. It will prompt us with several questions. However, all the settings are editable afterwards, so we can use the default settings for now by pressing Enter for each question. We can modify the configuration at any time in the user data config.json file. Next, we'll utilize dev containers, which can save us significant time. Dev containers are full-featured development environments that allow us to work directly in Docker. The Freqtrade Docker image has everything prepped for us, so we only need to use the dev container to open it as a project. The code will work without needing to download anything else. In VS Code, we can utilize a dev container with the help of the dev containers extension. Let's proceed to install it. We'll start by installing the dev container extension in Visual Studio Code. To do this, navigate to the extension section. In the search bar, type dev container and press enter. You should see the dev container extension in the search results. Click on the blue install button next to it to initiate the installation process. Once the dev container extension is installed, we need to create a dev container folder in our project directory. This is where we'll store the configuration files for our dev container. To create this folder, you'll need to run the add dev container configuration file command. In this step, we add configuration to the workspace. We then choose from a list of predefined container configurations and set up a template for our development container. This template will determine the technology stack used. As we're using Python for our project, we'll select a Python template and use the default version. At this moment, we don't select any features. Click OK. With the template in place, you can now customize your devcontainer.json file. This file contains the metadata that Visual Studio Code uses to configure your dev container. You can specify things like the base image, features, customizations, and more. Remember, the devcontainer.json file should be located in the dev container folder you created earlier. I prepared the devcontainer.json file for this Freqtrade tutorial. You can download it from the link in the description below and place it in the dev container folder. Now let's examine the properties configured in this project's devcontainer.json. The dev container is named Freqtrade, and here we specify which Docker image we'll use to create it. Following this, we have a customization section. This allows for tool-specific property modifications. In this case, we specify that we want the Python and Pylance extensions installed in our dev container. Let's reopen this project in a development container by running the reopen in container command. This process will take a few moments as the system spins up. Now, when we examine our Visual Studio Code interface, it appears almost identical to before, but with a few noticeable differences. The name of the container, as defined in the devcontainer.json file, is now displayed in the bottom left corner. If we navigate to our extensions, we observe two distinct sections. The first one lists the locally installed extensions, while the second section, labeled as the dev container section, comprises extensions that were exclusively installed in my dev container. Now, open the terminal. When using the Freqtrade command, for example, Freqtrade show config, there's no need to use Docker compose. Instead, Freqtrade can be used directly. Great! We've successfully installed Freqtrade on our Windows machine. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Your support helps keep me motivated to create more content like this. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, peace out.